I didn't find out about my wife's OnlyFans through the internet. I found out because my daughter's second-grade teacher was one of her subscribers. Let me back up. It was parents' night at Willow Creek Elementary. Long hallway, paper stars on the walls, weak coffee in a styrofoam cup. You know the drill. My wife, Natalie, couldn't come, said she had a consulting call with a client that evening. She kissed me at the door like everything was fine and told me to take notes. I said sure. I took Ellie, our youngest, with me. She was excited, dressed up, 7 years old and already more graceful than most adults I know. We held hands on the way to her classroom. She squeezed tighter when we walked in. Her teacher, Mr. Bright, mid-30s, fit, square jaw, expensive haircut, greeted us with that public school charm. Polished but exhausted. We shook hands. Ellie beamed. He smiled back and bent down to ask her how she was liking her new chapter books. It should have ended there. But as we walked toward the classroom door to leave, he touched my shoulder lightly and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" "Sure," I said, puzzled. Ellie was busy drawing hearts on the whiteboard. He waited a moment, lowered his voice. "I just want to say, it's cool that you're so supportive of your wife's work." I blinked. "I'm sorry." "Her work," he repeated, suddenly awkward. "I mean, I know it's probably not easy, but hey, she's doing her thing, and that's brave." Something inside me slid sideways. "What work are we talking about?" I asked, voice flat. Now he looked nervous. His tongue darted over his bottom lip. "OnlyFans," he said under his breath. "I mean, you know, obviously." The room went still. My hand clenched around Ellie's backpack strap, knuckles whitening. "I don't," I said carefully. "Obviously." The man's face lost a shade of color. I just assumed. "Sorry. I thought you'd." "Don't." He raised both palms, taking a step back. "Forget I said anything. She's great." Yeah. Sorry." I didn't respond. Just turned to Ellie, smiled like my world wasn't tilting, and said, "Come on, kiddo." We walked to the car. I opened the door for her, buckled her in, smiled, drove home without turning on the radio. Inside, Natalie was on the couch with her laptop and a blanket over her knees, glass of wine in one hand, screen glow in her eyes. "Hey," she said, barely glancing up. "Hey." I didn't say anything else. Not that night. I helped Ellie brush her teeth, read her the last chapter of Charlotte's Web, kissed her on the forehead and tucked her in like I always do. Then I sat in the garage with the lights off for nearly 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't punch anything. I just sat there, watching the red glow of the water heater and listening to the ticking of the engine cooling. Natalie and I had been married for 10 years. 2 kids. Joint mortgage. Dog. PTA meetings. Weekends at the lake. We were boring in the way people used to call stable. Until we weren't. I replayed the last 6 months in my head. Her clients, her locked phone, her sudden interest in yoga pants and ring lights. The way she started doing her makeup even on days she didn't leave the house. The weekly consulting calls that always ended with her sighing like she'd run a marathon. I had thought maybe she was just reinventing herself. Post-pandemic burnout. Some kind of mid-30s creative reboot. Now I knew better. I pulled out my phone and opened her Instagram. Checked her followers, her recent posts. Nothing unusual. But then I clicked on her Linktree. It was new. I hadn't seen it before. And there it was. Buried behind a vague business inquiries button. A private site. Password protected. I stared at the screen. Then I set the phone down and exhaled slow. Not tonight, I told myself. But tomorrow? Tomorrow I'd find out exactly who my wife had become when no one was looking. I didn't sleep. I lay next to Natalie, listening to the quiet hum of her breath, the occasional twitch in her leg as she shifted in her sleep. I watched the ceiling, counted the seconds between each gust from the vent. I stared into the dark and tried to remember when her breathing had last comforted me. Morning came slow. She left early, said she had a video call with a brand manager in the UK. I nodded like I cared and watched her pack her tote bag with things that didn't belong to that sentence. Lipstick, a silk robe, a second phone. I waited 15 minutes after she drove off, then pulled her laptop from the kitchen drawer. It was locked, but I knew the password. It hadn't changed, still our wedding date, reversed. 07/21/13. Stupid. The Linktree was still open in Safari. I clicked the private site. Password screen. I tried 3 guesses. Her mother's maiden name. Our dog's name. Our oldest daughter's birthday. Third one worked. I told myself I was prepared for what I'd see. I wasn't. It started with photos. Nothing explicit at first. Just her in lingerie, posed on the guest bed. But it wasn't just the lingerie. It was the way she looked at the camera, like it knew something I didn't. Like I wasn't real, and it was. Then the videos. Short ones. Some playful. Some rehearsed. But what got me wasn't what she wore, or didn't wear. It was the setting. The lamp next to her? My grandfather's, handed down after he passed. The blanket she posed with? A Christmas gift from our daughter, Ellie. She picked it out herself, said it was soft like mama. One video was filmed in our bedroom. My pillow in the background. My shirt on the floor. I closed the laptop. Stared at my own hands like they belonged to someone else. This wasn't just her body on display. This was our home. Our life. Our space, repurposed into something for sale. And someone was buying. Dozens of subscribers. Comments. Likes. Messages. Tips. One user stood out, Gentleman47. His name popped up in almost every thread. Always tipping. Always commenting. Always requesting. I checked the message log. You looked beautiful in that red one. Wear it again tomorrow. Loved seeing the kitchen in the background. Feels like I'm there with you. I could make this more personal for you. DM me. There was a response. From her. We can talk about that. Do you use the same name on Venmo? She had. I checked our bank records. She had a secondary Venmo account I never knew about. Connected to a different email. Her private income. Unreported. Unshared. Unmarried. That night, she made spaghetti for dinner like nothing had changed. She poured me a glass of wine, laughed at something Ellie said, and touched my shoulder when she passed behind me. I looked at that hand. The same one that cupped her chin in every photo. I said nothing. After the kids went to bed, she settled into the couch and scrolled her phone. Every now and then, I caught her smiling at the screen, that private, performative smile I used to think was mine. She looked up at me once. You okay? Yeah, I said. You seem quiet. Long day. She nodded. Went back to scrolling. And I sat there, knowing something she didn't. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd made a career of it. And someone out there, maybe many someones, knew more about her now than I did. The moment I realized Gentleman47 wasn't just some lonely guy behind a screen, everything changed. At first, I assumed he was anonymous, like most of them. Just another username in a sea of subscribers, tossing tips and comments into the void, hoping to be noticed. But this one was different. He was consistent, frequent, personal. He referenced her clothes, the settings in her photos, even details about our house, details a stranger shouldn't know. I went back into her Venmo history. She used a secondary account under her maiden name. The payments from him came weekly, always on Friday afternoons. Not $5 or $10 like the rest of her followers. His transfers were large, some in the hundreds. They came with vague captions, custom work, personal, thank you. One simply said, thanks for today. That one stayed with me. That wasn't about a video. That was about time. Real, offline time. I felt it before I understood it. Deep in my gut. This wasn't just content. She had a client. A sponsor. Someone she met in person. I made a burner email and messaged him through her creator profile. Posed as a new fan, asked about premium access and one-on-one services. No reply. But I didn't need one. Because 2 days later, I saw them. I had just dropped off the kids at school and stopped by a nearby gas station. Across the street, outside a corner cafe, I saw her, Natalie, standing on the sidewalk. Smiling. Laughing. Twisting her hair the way she did in college when she wanted something. The man she was with was older. Mid-50s, maybe. Gray hair, beard trimmed close. Expensive coat, casual confidence. He leaned toward her like he'd done it 100 times. They didn't hold hands. No kiss. But the intimacy was there. Familiarity you don't fake. After a few minutes, he handed her a small shopping bag. She took it, leaned in, said something close to his ear. He smiled. Then she walked away. Not hurried. Comfortable. He stayed behind, sipping his drink at an outdoor table like a man with no secrets. I didn't follow her. I followed him from a distance, just to the parking lot. Watched him get into a black Audi. Snapped a photo of his plate. Went back to my truck and ran the image through Google Lens. Took less than a minute. His name was Graham P. Linton. Local real estate guy. Community board. One of those names you see on bronze plaques in lobbies of schools and libraries. A donor. A man of the town. And, as it turned out, chairman of the Parent-Teacher Council at Willow Creek Elementary. The same school our daughter goes to. The same school where her teacher accidentally let the truth slip. I sat in my truck, staring through the windshield like it was a window into another life. My wife's life. The one I wasn't part of. The one she curated behind passwords and paywalls and a smile she hadn't used on me in years. I wasn't angry. Not the kind of anger that makes you yell or throw something. I was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before action. Because now I knew. This wasn't just about photos or money. This was about proximity. About being this close to a different life. A private performance for an audience she handpicked. An audience that lived in our zip code, walked our sidewalks, maybe even sat beside me during school events. She hadn't just crossed a line. She built a business on top of it. And she had no idea that the man sitting next to her every night, the man she thought was too blind, too soft, too trusting, was already putting the pieces together. I didn't confront her. Not yet. But I would. And when I did, I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd raise the ground beneath her. She didn't know I knew. That gave me an advantage I didn't plan to waste. Every smile she gave me, every casual, "How was your day?" Every time she asked if I'd remembered to grab almond milk, it all felt like theater. A play I was suddenly watching from the wings, not acting in. She thought we were still partners. That's what made it almost laughable. The first thing I did was buy a second phone. Nothing fancy. Prepaid. I set it up with a private Gmail account and a separate cloud backup. Then I ordered a camera, motion-triggered, discreet, designed for nurseries or aging parents. I mounted it in the guest room while she was on a fake Zoom call. She didn't notice. Next came the finances. I requested copies of her tax filings. She always insisted on doing them herself, called it her lane. I played dumb for years, assuming she was just more organized. But it turned out she wasn't just organized, she was strategic. There was no mention of the extra income. Nothing reported. No trail. But the deposits were there. Venmo. Cash App. One of them linked to a PayPal business account under the name NB Creative. NB. Natalie Brooks. I took screenshots. Exported statements. Filed it all. She didn't just have a side hustle. She had a second identity. And it was making more than I did. One night, while she was in the shower, I went into her purse. Found the second phone. It was face-locked, but it lit up when a notification came in. Just a line of preview text. "Hey love. Same time Friday? I can bring champagne." I forwarded the number to my burner. Ran it through a lookup service. And there he was. Graham Linton. Still gentleman 47. Still tipping. Still meeting her. Still sending messages like they were teenagers with too much time and no shame. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not even Dan, my oldest friend, who would have shown up at my door with a bat and a speech about pride. This wasn't about pride. It was about precision. I needed to know how far she'd gone. How deep. How public. I needed every angle before I made a move. So I waited. Watched. She grew bolder. Left her phone unlocked once, while cooking. I stepped into the hallway and took 23 photos in 90 seconds. Messages. Payout logs. Wardrobe requests. One note that read, "Filming it too. Pick the kids up if you're free." That one hit. Not the tone. The timing. Because that same day, I'd come home early from work. Said I felt sick. She said she was going for a walk. She came back flushed and humming. Said she'd gotten a smoothie and called her mom. Gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and went a change. She'd smelled like cologne I didn't own. The camera footage confirmed it. She wasn't walking. She was filming. With him. He entered through the back door. Stayed 40 minutes. Left without ever seeing the hallway camera. But I saw everything. She was wearing a new set, one of those outfits that served no practical purpose, only presence. He moved around the room, adjusting things. The lighting. The angle. Her posture. The whole thing looked choreographed, like they'd done it before. At one point, he reached up and brushed her hair back from her shoulder. Gently, like clearing the frame. And she smiled. Not for him. Not by accident. It was the kind of smile she used to save for private moments. Soft. Slow. Wordless. I hadn't seen it in years. I'd seen that smile once. On our wedding day. That night, I lay next to her and counted her breaths again. Listened for guilt. For tension. For anything that might tell me this wasn't all rehearsed. But there was nothing. She slept like someone who believed she was safe. And me? I started building the exit. Not just from the marriage. From the illusion. I didn't want to weaponize the kids. I wasn't that guy. But the day my daughter asked, "Why is mommy always smiling at her phone when we're not there?" Something inside me broke. Ellie's voice was small, curious, 7 years old, and far too observant for her own good. We were walking through the grocery store. She was holding the list, proudly reading out items like she was running the mission. When she asked the question, she didn't mean anything by it, but it landed like a punch. I didn't answer right away, just reached for the bread and said, "She probably just likes funny videos." But Ellie kept talking. "She used to smile at you like that," she said. "Now she does it to her phone." Later that night, I stood in the kitchen alone, holding the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. It wasn't just about me anymore. Whatever line I'd been trying not to cross, she crossed it for me. That's when I called the lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer. Yet. A friend of my brother's who specialized in discreet asset protection and family custody preparation. We met the next morning at a diner off Route 22. He ordered black coffee and looked at me the way lawyers do when they already know more than they're willing to admit out loud. "Tell me everything," he said. I did. All of it. Her secret accounts. The private site. The man. The money. The house being used as a studio. The kids unknowingly walking through a set. He didn't interrupt. Just listened. Took notes. Then looked me in the eye and said, "We'll need documentation. Full financials. Evidence. You want the house?" "Yes." "Primary custody?" "Yes." "Do you want to ruin her?" I didn't answer. He nodded like that was enough. "Then do exactly what I say. No arguments. No emotional explosions. You stay calm. You gather. You prepare." That's exactly what I did. I started separating accounts. Created a new checking account with only my name on it. Redirected my paycheck. Froze our joint credit card under the excuse of fraud alert. Natalie rolled her eyes, but didn't press. I changed the will. Rewrote beneficiaries. Bought a fireproof box and started filing copies of every bill, tax return, and receipt with her secret email on it. All while she laughed at her phone and made content when the kids were out of the house. She thought I was checked out. Truth was, I'd never been more alert in my life. One night, I came home from work early. She was filming in the guest room again. Door locked. Kids watching a movie downstairs. I didn't interrupt. I just stood in the hallway and listened. The sound of her voice, soft, flirty, artificial, made my skin crawl. After 10 minutes, she came out wearing a robe and wiping off lipstick. She looked startled to see me. "You're home early." "Yeah. You should have told me." "I would have. Finished faster." She paused. Frowned. I smiled. "Just a little. Don't worry about it." She said nothing. Later that night, she climbed into bed beside me, rolled to her side, back to me. For a moment, I thought about saying something. About telling her I knew everything. About the man. About the videos. About the lies. But I didn't. Because if I'd said something, she'd spin it. She'd cry. Blame stress. Blame me. Blame trying to provide. She'd start playing victim before I could even finish the sentence. And I wasn't ready for her to start defending herself. Not yet. Because I wasn't done watching her dig. I wanted her to go deeper. To think she was safe. To think she was clever. Because when the ground finally dropped out from under her, I wanted her to realize she'd been the one loosening the floorboards all along. She felt it. Not all at once. But in pieces. A shift in how I looked at her. In the way I didn't ask questions anymore. How I stopped checking in. Stopped noticing her new outfits. Stopped playing along with the story she thought we were still telling. And that terrified her. The more I pulled away, the more she leaned in. She started making small talk again. Packed my lunch a few times, like she used to years ago. Left notes with smiley faces. Wore my old sweatshirt around the house like it meant something. But it was too late. The bond was cut. Quietly. Surgically. And she didn't even feel the scalpel until the warmth started leaking out. One evening, after dinner, she came and sat next to me on the couch. Our son was doing homework. Ellie was upstairs playing with dolls. Natalie pressed her knee against mine like it was an old habit. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. "Just tired. Work okay?" "Work's fine." She waited for me to ask her the same. I didn't. After a moment, she said, "I feel like we haven't really talked in a while." I nodded. "Yeah, I guess we haven't." Another pause. Then, "Do you still love me?" She said it like a dare. I looked at her, really looked, and saw what was left beneath the filter and the posing and the makeup. Not evil, not cruel, just empty. "You want the honest answer?" I asked. She nodded. "I don't know who you are anymore." That landed. She blinked, looked away. "I'm still me," she whispered. "No," I said. "You're someone else. You just haven't introduced her to me yet." She stood up after that, went upstairs, didn't say goodnight, but I wasn't trying to hurt her. Not directly. I was just done playing the husband role in a script I didn't write. That week, I pushed further. I had a forensic accountant, recommended by my lawyer, look at her second income stream. He traced multiple payouts to a separate PayPal account, connected to a name she never used publicly. A pseudonym. But the address for the payouts? Our house. It was clear. She wasn't hiding what she was doing. She was just pretending it wasn't wrong. The worst part? She'd built a second life on top of the one I gave her, the house I paid for, the utilities I covered, the insurance in my name. She never thanked me. But Graham did. Another payment came in, larger than usual, with a message. For Thursday, let me know if the guest room's available. I felt something behind my ribs tighten. Not jealousy, just confirmation. She wasn't trying to fix this. She was still building it. I watched her leave the house that Thursday in a black dress she hadn't worn in years. Hair curled. Red lipstick. She said she was going to meet a friend from college for coffee. She came back 2 hours later, cheeks flushed, perfume strong. And she forgot to delete the text. I found it that night, while the kids slept and she was in the shower. Graham, you looked incredible. Still shaking. Thank you for today. Her reply, you spoil me. Same time next week. I took screenshots. Sent them to my lawyer. Subject line. Timeline confirmed. Financial proof attached. I didn't speak to her that night. Or the next morning. And that silence? It rattled her more than any screaming ever could. She thought I was pulling away to make her chase me. That's how it usually worked. I'd grow quiet, she'd panic. She'd turn soft, flirty, apologetic, until I gave in and pretended everything was fine. It was a rhythm, a pattern. Not this time. This time, the silence wasn't distance. It was preparation. I set the meeting for a Tuesday morning. She thought we were just grabbing brunch. I let her pick the place. Bright, modern cafe downtown. The kind of spot she used to post stories from, with over-edited photos and captions like Monday mood and grind time. She wore white that day. Tight dress, high heels, lip gloss, hair curled in waves. A woman in performance mode. I showed up in jeans and a black polo. No pretense. She leaned in to kiss me on the cheek. I turned, and her lips met air. She blinked, covered it with a smile. We ordered. She talked about how the kids had been sleeping better. How maybe we should plan a trip in the fall. Her voice was light, but her eyes kept scanning me, confused by my stillness. When the waiter left, I took out a manila envelope and slid it across the table. She looked at it, then at me. What's this? Open it. She hesitated, then pulled the flap open and started reading. It didn't take long. First page, a printed spreadsheet with her online transaction history, payouts, tips, private messages. Second, screenshots of her text with Graham. Third, a signed declaration from a forensic accountant verifying the income stream. Fourth, custody petition draft. My name at the top. Hers, absent. She looked up, face suddenly pale. What is this? This, I said calmly, is the real version of our marriage. You've been spying on me? I've been documenting. This is insane, she said, her voice cracking. You went through my messages? After our daughter's teacher recognized you by username? Yeah, I did. She flinched like I'd slapped her, but I hadn't even raised my voice. Ben, you used our home as a set, our bed as a stage, our kids' schedule as your business hours. You think I'm the one who's crossed the line? Tears started gathering, fast and theatrical. This isn't fair, she whispered. You don't know how hard it's been. You've been distant for years. I needed something for me. I leaned forward slightly, still quiet. Then you should have asked for help. Not money from strangers. Not gifts from a man who calls our daughter's school board meetings. She looked down. Couldn't hold my stare. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said. You didn't mean to get caught. Silence. Long dense. I'm not going to drag your name through court, I continued. But I will protect my kids. I have the evidence. I have the plan. I have the lawyer. She swallowed. Her hand trembled on the table. You can keep the car, I said. Not the house. Not the kids. And not the story. She opened her mouth to protest. I raised a hand. We're past bargaining. I'm not here for a confession. I'm here to hand you the terms. She looked at the envelope again like it might burst into flames. I thought you'd scream, she said. I shook my head. You're not worth screaming over. I stood up. She didn't follow. And as I walked out into the sunlight, one thought echoed in my head, louder than any of her excuses. I didn't take anything from her. She gave it all away. The house was quiet again. No soft lighting set up in the guest room. No mystery packages arriving at the door. No sound of laughter from behind a locked door that didn't include me. Just footsteps. Mine. And the kids. Natalie moved out 3 weeks after the cafe. I didn't throw her out. I didn't have to. She saw the lawyer's letter. Saw the custody paperwork. She met with her own attorney once, tried to posture. But the documents were airtight. The evidence, stacked and dated. There was nothing to fight. She signed the agreement. Primary custody to me. Every other weekend to her. Full child support, calculated by state law, paid monthly. No claim on the house. She kept the car. The rest stayed with me, including the reality she tried to hide from. She didn't contest the payments. Not seriously. Her lawyer probably told her the truth. You built a separate life. Now you fund the one you left behind. The first few days after she left, the kids were quiet. Ellie cried one night. Said she didn't understand why mommy had a different house now. I sat on the edge of her bed, hand on her back. Sometimes, I told her, people make choices they can't undo. Did mommy do something wrong? She made a choice that hurt us. But we're going to be okay. And we were. I started cooking more. We walked to the park after dinner. Max and I built a science project that took over the kitchen table for a week. Ellie made a chore chart and decorated it with stars. They laughed again. I did too. The guest room became something new, a place for books, drawings, messy sleepovers. I repainted the wall, took down the mirror she used for posing, put up the kids' artwork instead. No spotlights, just daylight. The old life faded slowly, but its grip on me was gone. A month later, I saw Graham in the grocery store parking lot. He looked smaller, not in size, but in presence. His face was tense, eyes darted. He didn't look at me. I didn't stop walking. She didn't end up with him. Of course not. People like her don't settle, they orbit, always searching for a new center of gravity. Last I heard, she started a podcast. Something about empowerment and narrative control. Her voice sounded practiced. Edited. Emptier than I remembered. I turned it off before the first ad break. I didn't need to hear her version. One afternoon, Ellie brought home a drawing from school. A house. A little girl, a boy, and a man in a baseball cap. They were holding hands. Who's this? I asked, pointing to the dad in the picture. She smiled. That's you, Daddy. I looked for Natalie. She wasn't there. Ellie shrugged. I didn't know which house to draw her in. I nodded. That's okay. But in my mind, I thought, she's not in this house anymore. And she never will be again.